live stream.
Call the meeting to order. Ask you please stand and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Ms. Turner, would you please take roll call?
Mr. Castellano.
Present.
Mr. Hain.
Here.
Ms. Monticelli.
Here.
Mr. Storr.
Here.
Ms. Dudley.
Here.
Mr. Tillmans.
Here.
Chairman Michaely.
Here. Thank you and welcome to the April meeting of the Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals. We're going to actually start the meeting by asking we go into executive session to meet with council. We look for a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So we will be continued to live stream. It should only be a few minutes.
Okay, we're back to executive session. No decisions were made, no votes were taken. We have 5 petitions before us tonight. The town clerk will read the legal notices for each petition. We ask that as your legal notice is read, you come up front, approach the podium, give us your name and address, and tell us about the project. Ms. Turner, would you please read the legal notice for the first case?
The petition of Gary Mashanak, 21 Pavement Road, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of amending an approved site plan on premises owned by the petitioner at 21 Pavement Road, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400, zoning section 17, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for a 5 feet, 1/4 inch side yard setback from the north property line. Chapter 400 zoning, section 17, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a minimum side and rear yard for parking, loading, and stacking areas abutting a residential district. The petitioner therefore requests a 19-foot, 11 3/4 inch variance.
Thank you. Is there anyone from 21 Pavement here? Sir, can you please, hi, please tell us your name and address.
Sure. Gary Macniak, representing 21 LLC of Western New York.
Everyone tell us about the project?
Yes, back in 2019, a site plan was presented and approved by the planning board for an addition on my building at 2021 Pavement Road. During that time, after that the planning board approved it, we commenced with the building, had the building permits, and we constructed the building. Part of it was a site plan, obviously, dealing with it. We proceeded to build the building and finished everything up to as far as we could do with the site plan at the time. This building was built during COVID times, which was a challenge in itself. So in the meantime, what happened was the building was built, and there was a change in the situations which, when we started paving and started doing the asphalt work and the landscaping. We completed the landscaping as approved to the site plan, but the problem was that when, in reality, what was happening was when the asphalt in the parking lot and the driveway was put in, I found it that it was, as the asphalt people were putting all the asphalt in and everything, I found it like non-conducive to what the building and the safety manners and the efficiency of the operations that we had to do it correctly. So I had the asphalt people just put the asphalt in and didn't realize that it was a situation that it was going to be conducive of the total package, which was part of the site plan and part of all the building codes. So what happened was, I had it built as is, and it didn't work out properly to what the actual site plan was. Is in your possession right now, the site plan was item C, if you could take a look at what the site plan was. And that's how the driveway was supposed to be as far as what the red line is on that. If you take a look at how it's surveyed right now on item B that I submitted, you can see the difference on how the asphalt is. The blue line, as you're looking at, is what is surveyed. I do believe it's a blue line or whatever or did it copy properly?
It's black and white.
Pardon?
It's black.
Yeah, but you could see like the difference of what the actual survey is as opposed to what it was supposed to be. So if you take a look at that, the original one, going back to where the dumpster is, there's only like about a 16-foot area that goes between the building, the new building that was built, and then in certain areas it actually gets a little bit smaller, almost to 12 to 14 foot. One thing, it's not conducive of any tractor trailer going through, number one. Number two, for a fire engine coming through or offloading fire equipment and stuff like that, it's not conducive for that, in my opinion, for the safety and the efficiency of the business. What we have is, if you take a look at the difference of what from the site plan to what I want and what is existing and what will work better is maybe if you take a look down the line, if you go past the dumpster, it really doesn't mean much for plowing snow and everything on the one side of that going back there. But it increases, one thing, it increases about 4 foot on the one side to get a little bit to get tractor trailers or things through or into the bay that's for machinery and things that have to be moved in. Another thing is moving around for a tractor trailer. Another area is where it juts out to 27 foot as opposed to 16 foot for forklifts to get around a flatbed for offloading materials and things like that. And the most important thing that I feel is that where the parking lot goes and where the original parking area is, if you take a look at items, item C, if you take a look where the egress is to the building coming out, you've got 20-foot typical of a truck or a car or whatever. If it is built to the site plan, you can't even back out of that. It was an oversight on our parts and an oversight of the engineers. So you really can't even get a car to back up properly at that if it's held to what the original site plan was. That's the difference on what I want. The reason why this happened and everything is we're going for the variance right now is because between the time that the building was built and I looked at for the amendment of the site plan, what happened is they changed this. We were under non-conforming use all the way back when we built this building, or we moved into this building 34 years ago. That's how long we've been here. At that time, as far as what the zoning was and everything, we were under non-conforming use. From the time that this building was put up to now, they changed the zoning to commercial. So what happened was the original site plan of the planning board with the variances and the non-conforming use was proper. Now it's not, and that is why what changed, because of the zoning change from non-conforming, which is industrial basically, which fell within what the guidelines were 30, 40 years ago as opposed to what it is now. It was changed. So that's where the variance comes into being. It's a little bit complicated, but you sort of have to lay it out properly.
Thank you. We'll go to the board for questions. I just would like to start by asking Matt a question. Matt, prior to the change in zoning, how was this? Was this residential with a lawful non-conforming use?
It was the existing non-conforming use. In 2010, I believe, it was a site plan approval originally given with variance to expand the non-conforming use
Okay.
to what was proposed. In 2019, that approval was readopted, reapproved, because it hadn't been built in the time frame that it was approved. So it was a lapse in construction.
Okay.
So the statement is correct that at the time the site plan was approved, it was the existing non-conforming use allowed for the expansion.
So what would the setbacks, if this had never been rezoned, what would the setback have been?
I'm going to have to go back in time and look at all the setback requirements, but again, this was an approval that was done in 2010. It was this proposed paving schematic with the landscape plan for privacy concerns and what have you, buffering between the existing non-conforming use and the residential use.
Yeah.
And it was approved at the time.
Okay. We'll go to the board for any questions. Ms. Castellano, would you like to start?
No, Chairman. I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hain.
When was the code changed?
Our zoning code and zoning map changed in December of 2020 after the adoption of the comprehensive plan in 2017.
Okay, so after the site plan, the original site plan was approved.
Correct.
But then the site plan, or the project was actually altered. The project was installed differently than the actual site plan.
Project was built not compliant to the approved site plan.
Correct. So was the owner notified of that at some point?
We did notify upon inspection. It was unfortunately at the final inspection. We had requested the as-built survey to verify conformance with that site plan, and that's when we found discrepancies.
When was that?
2021. Get that date for you there. March 31st, 2021.
So 2 years ago.
May I add one other thing, if may I? The original survey of this, when we moved into this building in 1989, all right, the parking lot and all the areas that were considered as parking lot or driveway were all gravel, and they were within 4 to 5 feet of the property line at that time. So that was before any landscaping that was done, any improvements that were done from the property since then. What we did is when we got the site plan and changed the site plan to what we were building, we were trying to conform as much as we could to it by, taking out the different areas that were unsightly. We put things out more is more eye-pleasing, put the asphalt in, obviously, because it had to be done anyways, and then we figured it out. But the original driveway of this was about 4 feet to 5 feet away from the property line. Being it non-conforming, I mean, this original building was built, I think, in 1950. So it goes back way, way, way back before any zoning laws were around and everything, and any plans or to change it were. So.
I have no more
Mr.
questions.
Haney, any more questions? Ms. Monticelli, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions at this point. I just want to note for the record that we did receive a letter from the neighbors, Stephen and Aaron Rice at 27 Pavement Road. I believe that would be the home directly to the north of this property. Essentially, they're objecting to our granting the variance. This letter is addressed to this board as well as the planning board. And just briefly, they write that the driveway expansion was completed in August 2020 and violates the current approved site plan as well as the town code. WNR was informed on February 1st, 2023, that due to the driveway expansion being within 15 feet from the property line at 27 Pavement, they must request a variance. This letter is to inform you that we adamantly object to this variance. WNR has been allowed to operate in their new addition for several years without a certificate of occupancy and will not adhering to the approved site plan. Continued operations outside of the approved site plan, as well as the failure to adhere to zoning requirements pertaining to noise produced by WNR, have caused disruption to our residents and a decreased value of our home. By approving a variance to expand the driveway to closer than 15 feet from our property line will further decrease the value of our property. Do you have any response to?
Yeah, may I address that?
Please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
As far as moving the asphalt line 4 foot or 5 foot to the south, it's not going to inhibit any type of property devaluation. If we go to the original site plan, what's going to happen is we're just going to tear up the area and just make a cut line and pull up all the asphalt that's there, and then we're completely compliant of what the site plan is. And it's not going to really change anything as, number one, as far as property values go, because you're talking about a 4 foot to 5 foot difference in asphalt closer to a property line, which is still closer. And the neighbors, everything in the neighbors is within 5 foot of the boundaries anyways. So he's got a residential as opposed to, we have a commercial. There's a line of demarcation, obviously, too. As far as addressing the noise, this is what the complaint is for the neighbor for the past 2 years, 3 years, all right? We've been there 34 years. We own it. We are a job shop, wood shop, and machine shop, okay? We've complied with every bit of the town's noise ordinances for 34 years. We have never, ever, ever, in the 34 years, received one complaint about a neighbor on our business of any noise, any type of trash, any type of unsightly things, any type of noise or obstructions or safety hazards in that area ever. And this even goes back into the 1950s when the people built that building, the Warners, for years and years and years. There has never been an issue with anything. The neighbor next door has been to the town board complaining about it. He's been complaining about to the building inspector. He's complained about it to the police. To no avail, because I am running a completely legitimate business within the boundaries of what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm allowed to do. What his issues are, as far as the noise ordinances go, it's almost, I have to equate it to, as long as I'm not running my business and emitting noise between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., I'm completely within my rights to do that. And if you take a decibel meter, which he has not even, the neighbor has not even had any type of analysis and everything and had any certification as far as what the decibel level is. If you go to the property line right now, I'm speaking and you're hearing me at about a 70 decibel level. Right now I'm emitting at my shop at the property line, at the noisiest part of town, of the time, I emit 69 decibels at the property line. That's more or less speaking to you. It doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen between the quiet hours. It's a legitimate business. There's trucks that come in and out of the business. There's forklifts that run around the business. It fits the criteria of what I'm allowed to do. And how the neighbor is interpreting this law and everything and what's going on, I don't know. I think it's a personal, my personal opinion is this letter that he wrote is a personal vendetta because of the noise ordinances that he can't do anything with. Right now, he just slapped me with a $250,000 lawsuit in state Supreme Court complaining because his domicile existence and his domicile property is being intruded by me and my noise. And I'm not doing anything. He purchased his house 10 years ago or whatever it was. I've been in business for 34 years. I've never had a complaint about this until 2-3 years ago when he started complaining about the noise. Apparently for 7 years the noise didn't mean anything to him. Now all of a sudden it does. This is where this letter comes from, and I'm talking and speaking that this has nothing to this change in this application for this variance has nothing to do with noise. No matter what happens, the noise is going to be the same. I'm going to still be allowed to operate the business as I am for the last 34 years. This variance is going to change anything. The only thing it's going to change is if this variance doesn't get passed, which I'm humbly asking for you to do it, I'm going to have to go and rip all this up, reseed it, put the soil in, keep the landscaping as it is, and life goes on. And then everything finishes up with this whole ordeal that I've been through for COVID, for the building, and all the other stuff for the last 3 to 4 years. And I just want to put this thing to bed. If it's not going to be passed, I'll happily go and rip it up and spend the extra money that has to be done. All I want to do is run a safe and efficient business. Looking at this and looking at these plans, it's not a big variance and a big difference of what is going to be done to conform to either one, what the planning board approved, or two, what the variance will approve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. So you're looking to add on to the existing building?
Am I?
Yes.
In the future?
It's already
There's
been done.
a proposed
It's already been
building.
done, so that's already been put up.
The addition?
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I was just out there and I just saw the original building, so it's already been done.
Yeah, it's all, everything's been built.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I can answer your question from the previous zoning and setback requirements, I did think that
Yeah.
2000 zoning map was changed to identify the properties of residential commercial office space, creating the nonconformity from the prior code. Setback dimension for any parking, loading, and stacking area, side, rear, abutting the residential district will be 25 feet, and that area would have to be completely landscaped.
Great. So going back to your point, it did, that's why, and so if I'm correct here, it didn't make a difference. The setback is 25 now.
The time in the original approval and the reapproval of the site plan.
Okay, so just, it didn't, so that's not, that's why I asked the question, because I feel for where you're coming from, but it seems like the rezoning is not what caused the issue here. It would have been a 25-foot setback anyway.
But it was approved by the planning board back then.
Well, when it was approved by the planning board, I can't read, even with my glasses, I can't see. Matt, the site plan that was approved, how far was the driveway supposed to be from the property line? It wasn't,
Proposed to be maybe this drawing doesn't have that dimension.
because I can't see, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. And
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Stark.
No questions, sir.
Ms. Dudley,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Mr. Tillmans, what say you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not have any questions at the moment.
Okay, is anyone in the audience who would like to speak about this? Yes, come on up. Sure.
Well, thank you for letting me speak. I am the neighbor to the north, Steve Bice, at 27 Pavement Road. To be truthful, his building was 1970, my house was 1950. He did have a stone driveway. It did not go all the way past his existing building. So when he did pave that, he continued that driveway straight back, not according to the site plan that was approved. Along with the driveway, it has produced extra water that has pooled in the southeast corner of our yard because it does pitch that way to the retention pond. And I know that Sawgrass Retention Pond does have an issue going on with improper draining. So we have been getting quite a bit of water over the last couple of years that have been collecting there since the driveway has been put in. The noise issue was never an issue until he put his addition in. When he built the addition in, he boxed it in, put concrete underneath the machine, and then created the noise. That is the only reason why we tried to address him first with the issue and then with the building department. I have talked numerous times with Matt about the noise ordinance, and at the planning board meeting we last spoke, he did confirm that we were entitled to a reduced noise level and not what he is producing.
Okay.
It is also in the new code too, with the Schedule 400 about any custom manufacturing shop cannot produce any obscene noise, odor, glare, or, stuff to decrease property value.
Okay.
So,
Matt, are there any outstanding violations against the property?
Against,
The property, this property?
currently it's the site plan completion,
Right.
the operation, certificate of occupancy, everything is stemming right from the site plan. Those are the complaints that are
There's no certificate of occupancy?
still open. Not for the addition, we couldn't issue because the site plan
Okay, that's fine.
hasn't been completed as approved.
Okay, sir, anything else?
no, just want to point out that he has been working in that addition. He might say he's not, he's moving stuff in and out, but obviously being a neighbor to the north with 3 kids that were in their house quite a bit, playing in the yard, it is a very obvious thing. And we do have video if it was ever necessary to provide that evidence
Okay,
and stuff like that. So,
thank you.
well,
Is
thank
there
you.
anyone else who would like to speak on this issue? No? Matt, I'm curious to see what the site plan said, because if the site,
We're looking for a visit for that.
so when the planning board approved it, it must have been 25 feet, otherwise it would have needed a variance.
We would have needed a variance at that time.
Do you remember that, sir? Do you remember?
They never required a request.
Right, so the only way, unless they made a mistake, the only way that they could have given you that approval would have been if the setback was 25 feet, instead of,
At the time, the building wasn't even 25 foot off the property line.
okay. All right. Do we have anything else from the board?
No, thank you.
We have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings. That no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought. That no detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting the area variance relief sought. That the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other manner feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought. That the requested area variance relief sought is not substantial. That the proposed area variance relief sought will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental impact of the neighborhood or district. That the alleged difficulty is self-created. but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought. That this board is taking into consideration the benefit of the applicants if the area variance relief sought is granted as weighted against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intents and purposes of this ordinance, the area variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimal variance afforded or necessary to afford relief.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. We have a motion by Mr. Storr. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Storr, second by Mr. Castellano. Roll call?
Mr. Castellano.
Yes.
Mr. Hain.
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli.
No.
Mr. Storr.
Yes.
Ms. Studley.
Yes.
Mr. Tillman.
No.
Chairman Mikely.
No.
4 yeses. So granted.
The variance has been approved. Please make sure you check in with Matt before. All right. Good night. Next up is 6518 Broadway. Mr. Hanover, would you please read the legal notice?
The second case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of petition of Bryce Blair, 6518 Broadway Street, Lancaster, New York, for 2 variances for the purpose of constructing a shed in a rear yard on premises owned by the petitioner at 6518 Broadway, Lancaster, New York, to wit, A, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning section 17, subsection C of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing a 12 by 14-foot shed in a rear yard, 5 feet from the rear lot line, abutting a residential district. Chapter 400 zoning section 17, subsection C of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a minimum side and rear yard for structures abutting a residential district of 50 feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 45-foot variance. B, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning section 17, subsection C of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing a 12 by 14-foot shed in a rear yard, 5 feet from a side property line abutting a non-residential district. Chapter 400 zoning section 17, subsection C of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a minimum side and rear yard for structures abutting non-residential district of 25 feet. Petitioner therefore requests a 20-foot variance.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Bryce Blair, 6518 Broadway. I want to put a shed in the backyard. If you look at the size of the property, it doesn't have a lot of room behind the building. The septic system takes up about half of that backyard. So to meet those requirements that's existing, I really couldn't put anything of any size in the backyard. And any place else but where I want to put it would really block access to the backyard for any other work that may need to be done. And I don't have any other outbuilding to put stuff in, so that's really about it.
Thank you, sir. We'll go to the board. Mr. Hain, if you have any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Monticelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we have a letter from the neighbor, William Scott Wentland, who's at the property next door, 6520 Broadway, which would be where the variance is requested from, where the 5 feet comes into play. And Mr. Wentland says that he's aware of the request. He has no problem with it being close to his property line. I did have the opportunity to speak with Mr. Blair and his wife. They showed me the yard is small, and there really is only the one place to put the shed. So it's a significant request, 45 feet. But having seen the property, I understand why the request is as it is. I have nothing more, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Monticelli. Question, Mr. Blair, the property it looks like a commercial property. It was at one point. Is it just used for residents now?
No, it's a mixed-use property. We had a hardware store there for many years, and I'm still operating a plumbing business out of the first floor of the building.
Okay.
At this time.
Great, thank you. Mr. Storr, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Ms. Dudley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
Mr. Tillman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no questions.
Thank you. I'm sorry, anyone in the audience would like to speak about this?
Tony.
Tony?
Mind if I can add just comments?
I'm sorry, I didn't go to Mr. Castellano.
No further discussion, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Matt.
I have been speaking with this property owner for a long time. His plans are to convert to a residential occupancy, I guess. Those are the plans, and that was the purpose of being here tonight, to provide this accessory structure for property maintenance, storage, and what have you. We may see Mr. Blair again.
Yeah, I might be doing some other changes.
Zoning board, planning board, and town board, and see what happens in the future.
Good. I think this is just another situation where you've got a property that's owned commercial that abuts residential properties, and this is what we get. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Lancaster has made the following findings: that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought. No detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought. The benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought. The requested area variance relief is substantial. The proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. That the alleged difficulty is self-created, but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought. This board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted, as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. Within the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief.
Thank you, Ms. Monticelli. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Tillmans. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Castellano.
Yes.
Mr. Hain.
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli.
Yes.
Mr. Storr.
Yes.
Ms. Dudley.
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans.
Yes.
Chairman Michaely.
Yes. Congratulations, your variance has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Turnover, would you please read the legal notice for 555 Pleasant View?
Yes. Third case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is the petition of Luke Fisher, 555 Pleasant View Drive, Lancaster, New York, for two variances for the purpose of constructing a pole barn on premises owned by the petitioner at 555 Pleasant View Drive, to wit, A, a variance for the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning, Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing an 1,800 square foot pole barn. Chapter 400 zoning, Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires the maximum accessory structure of 750 square feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 1,050 square foot variance. B, a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning, Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing a 20-foot, 4-inch tall pole barn. Chapter 400 zoning, Section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires the maximum building height of an accessory structure of 16 feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 4-foot, 4-inch variance.
Thank you. I'm going to guess you're Luke Fisher from 555 Pleasant View, but please state your name
Got it.
for the record.
Luke Fisher, 555 Pleasant View Drive, Lancaster.
Thank you. Please tell us about the project.
The project really is just to keep the property looking nice and neat. And what I mean by that is we've got CAS coming in, they're doing a lot of work with the house. We actually like the siding color and everything, and we're going to keep that, but we're residing the house, new roof, adding a covered patio and stuff like that. But the pole barn, or the building in the back, is primarily just to keep the vehicles inside, out of sight, out of mind. And with all the snow we've been getting, I ended up buying a tractor. And again, just trying to make room in the garage. I've got stuff stacked in the attached garage. It's a little tight. So again, just trying to keep everything nice and neat. And that's the reason for the building in the back, just storage and future RV, hopefully.
All right, very good. Thank you. Questions? We'll start with Ms. Monticelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fisher, I did have a chance to stop by your property. Unfortunately, no one was home when I was able to get out there, but I did see the layout that you have, it is a significant variance that you're asking for. It seems to me that the neighbor most affected would be at 561 Pleasant. I'm sorry, Pleasant, Pleasant View. So I was lucky enough to find Elaine Marie Vorwerk at home for work, and I spoke to her. She said that she has no objections.
Awesome.
So I just wanted to mention that, and that's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Monticelli. I would also just point out, you've got a great yard which backs up to, I don't know if that's a 50 or 60 acre
That
vacant
was,
parcel.
yeah, that was one of the main reasons we bought that house. It was Michael Cronin's old house, and it worked out. You know, nobody could build across from us,
Yeah.
nobody build behind us, and it's just nice to watch the deer and
Is
stuff.
that a radio tower back there?
What was that?
Is that a radio tower that's back there?
It's some sort of analog tower for the airport.
Okay.
What they do, I have no idea.
Airport beacon for the outdoor Niagara International Airport.
Oh, I've always wondered what that is. I've seen it in aerials and never knew what it was. Mr.
Great.
Starr, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions.
How about Ms. Stubble?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, no questions.
Mr. Tillmans?
I just had a question about the height. What's the reason for such a tall?
Future RV. Future RV, and then just, you know, if I get a taller vehicle, I've got a F-350 that sits pretty tall and stuff like that, so just, really just future planning.
Very good. No other questions.
Mr. Hain, any questions? We'll go back to Mr. Castellano.
Yeah, I got one. Why are you asking?
Yes. Now, is your, like, the construction, when you build your, this proposed pole barn, is it gonna match the set, is it
Yes,
gonna match up?
Yeah, so
With your
I-
house, it's not gonna stick out like a
We're
sore
not doing a
thumb?
blue roof or anything else like that.
Right.
No, it's actually, I put a lot of care into this, and what we're gonna do is stay within earth tones. So the same siding colors that are currently gonna be on, same roof color, but
Right.
with the building in the back, a varnished slate roof, so dark brown roof, and then a light stone siding, so it, again, just kind of blends with.
Kind of blends with it. No business or anything, no, it's really big, that's all, there's no.
No,
It's just storage for recreational stuff, that's,
Exactly.
no further questions, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Hain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience like to speak about this?
If you don't mind, Chair? If I may?
Yes, sir.
And please don't take this in a negative fashion, but if it pleases this board, if this approval is granted, it could be conditioned specifically to be accessory to the primary structure, being a single-family residence, to avoid a future owner considering purchasing for the option of running a business out of such a large building.
Well,
It's on the same parcel, right?
It's all the same parcel,
Yeah.
but we have to understand, we are in a residential district.
Right.
It's a little bit more rural in nature.
Okay.
It's still a residential district, and again, more for saving some grief later on down the road.
Yeah.
And for future owners that are looking at this property.
So you're suggesting that maybe we could condition that it's subject, that it's an accessory structure? Because it always has
Accessory
been.
to a single-family residence is
Okay.
This is what it's doing.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah,
simply.
okay. It's a good point, Matt, thank you.
that's valid.
Thank you.
Ms. Castellano, motion?
No further.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, I said you wanted to make a motion. Okay.
No, for that to be put in,
Yeah, oh, you make, okay,
Yeah.
good. You want to just make the motion?
I just did.
Read the motion.
Read
It's not that simple,
Read.
Tony.
It can be.
Do you want to?
Oh, I got it.
Read the findings.
Oh, sorry, no, I got it, yeah, I gotta read, sorry.
That's
I never read, but I'll read now, hold on. Gotta find it. Sorry.
You want the large print one?
I have two of them too, so hold on. Okay, here we go. All right. Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings. No undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the grant of the area of the variance relief sought. That no deterrent to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought. That the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought. That requested area variance relief is not substantial. That is, proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environment conditions in the neighborhood or district. that the alleged difficulty is not self-created, but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought. That this board has taken into consideration the benefit and the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted and weighted against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intent and the purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief. That no commercial enterprise other than those permitted by Chapter 400 of the Code of the Town of Lancaster be conducted on the premise. That the petitioner failed,
Second.
You want to add the condition that you're talking about?
Yes.
Condition that it's, so how we, what are we saying, that condition that this will be an accessory structure?
Yes.
To a single-family residence.
To a single family, yes.
Can I read what I have? The pole barn will be an accessory to the single-family resident, accessory structure to the single-family residence?
I'm sorry, second was,
I'll second.
okay. Motion by Mr. Castellano, second by Ms. Monticelli. Roll call.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Hain?
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Ms. Studley?
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman Michaely?
Yes.
All right, guys, thank you so much.
Someone's happy, all right, good. Congratulations. Make sure you stop in with Matt before doing any work,
Okay, definitely.
as always. Thank you. All right, number 4, then, Ms. Monticelli, would you please read the legal notice for 33 Summit?
The fourth case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals, that of the petition of Jason Kwiatkowski, 33 Summit Street, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of installing a front porch deck on premises owned by the petitioner at 33 Summit Street, Lancaster, New York, to wit, a variance for the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning, Section 36, subsection C2 of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a front porch deck 25 feet 1.5 inches from the front property line. Chapter 400 zoning, Section 36, subsection C2 of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires an open porch or entranceway not project more than 8 feet into a required front yard. The petitioner therefore requests 1 foot, 10.5 inch variance.
Thank you, sir. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name's Jason Kwiatkowski. I reside at 33 Summit Street, Lancaster, New York.
Tell us about your project.
Yes, it is a new front porch that'll come down from a raised ranch. It's in the same location as existing porches. There is essentially no changes to the layout whatsoever. Unfortunately, I did not have my old survey from when I first purchased a home in '01 to state that it would be in the same location. This porch was fixed up and constructed in '19, but my wife was diagnosed with cancer, so we lost a lot financially, so I wasn't able to go through and get all this stuff taken care of right away. Hence is why I'm here now. We had to actually go back through and get brand new drawings, because the drawings that I had from the contractor that did it, they were also lost in the flood that I had along with the survey and all that. So I had to go back through and get brand new drawings made up, brand new survey. Hence I'm here right now. So essentially it's the same porch. Like I said, it's a raised ranch. If it can't shrink back anymore, you won't have proper egress to get out. You have to have so many steps in order to get out. So I have 2 steps coming down, and then there's a landing, and then another 2 steps that go down to my driveway. So in order to shrink that back, you would have no way for the front door to open up. It would hit railings, and it would probably be in a real big angle, or definitely somebody would fall and get hurt.
Thank you, sir. Let me just ask a question first. I'm not sure if I could see it was in the package. The dimensions of the porch. Can you speak to the dimensions of the porch, how wide and deep?
Yes, the porch itself is, the front landing is 4 feet by 3 feet, and then you have 2 steps going down to another landing that are 2.5 feet by 4 feet, the same length or same width as the stairs themselves, okay. And then another 2 set of stairs going down to the driveway. I said my driveway goes down at an angle, so I need the kind of steps in order to get down properly onto the driveway.
And you're saying it won't project any further towards the street than the current porch? Okay.
No, it's the same exact location as a brand or from the porch when I first bought the place.
Got it. Mr. Storr, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do have some questions. So, this is my third year on this board,
Yes.
and in that time, I've never received 12 neighbors to complain about a single petition, especially one that's only 1 foot 10 inches. I'm assuming some of these people are here to talk about this. Before they even get a chance to talk, is there anything you want to say that could say why I have a letter that's I'll read this to you. To the Lancaster Board, we the neighbors by 33 Summit object to the variance request. We believe it will alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The change poses a threat to other neighbors and is not desired by the neighborhood. We appreciate your consideration and cooperation in this matter, and it is signed by 12 different people. So is this a personal thing? Is this?
It is a personal thing between two neighbors and my wife.
Okay.
Okay, where there has been multiple cases of police that are involved, and it's a big case of bullying.
Okay. Your project, it's asking for a 1 foot and 10 inch variance. That's the size barely bigger than this name tag.
Correct.
Do you believe it'll pose any threat to the neighborhood? Any imposement?
Absolutely not.
Infringement on any neighbors? Will it be protruding into someone's yard to give you a view into someone's window or something in any way, shape, or form?
Absolutely not. Like I said, my driveway goes down at an angle, so the only way to get down to it would be 2 stairs down, landing, then another 2 stairs down.
Okay, I have no further questions at this time, Mr. Chair, but I probably will at some other point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Storr. Mr. Tubman?
I just wanted to add that we did get a letter from a neighbor that did state that they live at 27 Summit Street, and that it essentially just says that they do not have an issue with the 1 foot 10.5 inch variance. So I wanted to have that out
Put that in
there.
record. Thank you, Mr. Dudley. Mr. Tillmans?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have any questions at this moment either.
Thank you, Mr. Tillmans. Mr. Castellano? Do you have any questions?
Is there, this porch you're adding, I mean, it's gonna match the house? I'm trying to understand the complaints here, but, it's 1 foot.
Essentially what I said, bullying by a couple neighbors.
This porch is not, it's gonna match the house?
Yeah, it matches the house and everything. Yeah.
I got no further questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. Mr. Haynes, do you have any questions?
So basically, as I'm looking at the Google Earth picture here of the existing porch, your porch that you're planning to build is about 1 foot 10 inches bigger than the one that's there now?
No, it's the same size.
It's the same size?
Same size, correct.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Monticello, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just note for the record that we actually received 2 letters from neighbors who indicated that they have no concerns about this project. I think Ms. Dudley mentioned the one from the neighbor at 27 Summit, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. We also got one from Charles Perebski at 26 Summit, also saying he had no problem with the project. And in regards to the petition that Mr. Storr brought up, if my count is correct,
I didn't count the 4 on the back as well.
Oh, there's more.
Or 5 on the back.
Yeah.
So 17, not 12.
Okay.
My apologies on that.
All right, well, that's going to throw off my count, but of the 12 on the first page, we send notifications to the neighbors within 100 feet of the proposed project, and of the 12 on the front page, only 4 of them are actually within the 100 feet. I'm sorry, there's 5 more on the back, and I can't speak to their location.
One would be.
But I just wanted to make that note. One more from there?
Give or take a little bit, but yeah.
So approximately 5 out of 17 actually reside within the 100 feet. Okay. And it is, I think this has been noted, but it does appear to be a very minor variance request. So that is all I have,
All
Mr.
set?
Chairman. Thank you.
I have no more questions. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this? Ma'am?
I'd like to clarify prior to the audience participation on behalf of the zoning officer and the code enforcement officer. The house was built in 1961 with a concrete stoop in that configuration. The moment we changed the concrete stoop to a wooden deck structure, the setback requirements kick in. The concrete stoops, I mean, you can see these all over the place, especially with raised ranches. It tries to utilize the contour of the topography to help change the grade from the front door, which is about 5 feet above grade, to get down safely to the driveway. So the moment we change over from a concrete stoop to a wood deck, that setback requirement does kick in.
So if he had been building this concrete, he wouldn't need the variance?
Wouldn't even need a building permit.
What's the rationale behind that? That you made
Because
it?
it's a concrete paved surface, it's a concrete stoop. The means of egress needs to be met, but if you're satisfying all the requirements for the paved surface, the permit is not required.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Ma'am, if you'd like to speak, would you please approach the podium? Sir, would you please take a seat? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Mandy Johnson Fisher at 44 Summit Street. I guess I'm just a little confused. Is it just the stairs that's changing? Or what's actually changing?
Ma'am, please just make sure you introduce it.
Sure. So I guess what's the need for the variance then if nothing is actually changing?
Ma'am,
I guess
you
I'm a
wanna
little
take that?
confused about this.
There's a complaint that was filed for constructing a wooden deck on the front of the building without a building permit. And as I stated previously, had it been done in concrete, the permit would not be required. So we did not issue the building permit. That was built. And after looking at the design and the location of the wood structure, it was noted that it exceeded the encroachment into the allowable front yard.
So when it was built 60 years ago, maybe?
Well, when it was
50.
built 60 years ago, it was built in concrete.
Right.
It didn't need any
But at some point along the year,
requirements.
Because it's a front.
and over the past 60 years,
It was
codes
replaced
changed.
in 2019, somewhere in that time frame, without a building permit.
Okay.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
Can I ask your first name?
Mandy, M-A-N-D-I.
Oh, because it was concrete, it didn't need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because when they made it out of.
Anyone else have any, would like to approach the board regarding this? Hearing none, okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster made the following findings, that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance relief is not substantial, that the proposed area variance relief sought will not have an adverse effect on the impact or on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is not self-created, that the board is taking into consideration of the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted as weighted against the detriment to health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intended purpose of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance afforded relief. And I would like to make an amendment, I read something incorrectly. I would like to say the alleged difficulty is self-created, but not to the extent necessary to preclude granting of the area variance relief sought.
Thank you, I'll second that. Motion by Mrs. Storr, second by myself. Roll call, please.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Hain?
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Ms. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans?
Yes.
Chairman Michael?
Yes. Your request has been approved. Please make sure you check in with the building department before starting any construction.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Terranova, would you please read the legal notice for next case, 6218 Broadway?
The fifth case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that a petition of Kyle Banasak, Autopia LLC, 5520 William Street, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of the proposed construction of a commercial building on premises owned by the petitioner at 6218 Broadway, to wit.
Folks,
Folks, excuse me.
in the back.
No, not you. The people who talk in the back. Excuse me, sir. Ma'am. Could you just, that's right.
A variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning, Section 17, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for constructing an 8,000 square foot commercial building 25 feet from a side yard abutting a residential district. Chapter 400 zoning, Section 17, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a minimum side and rear yard for structures abutting a residential district of 50 feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 25-foot variance.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would, from representing this project? Hi, please
Yes.
state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Christopher Saley. I'm representing Kyle Banasic and Autopia LLC. Yeah.
Tell us about, so you are the owner? You said you're representing, it's your...
No, I'm representing the owner. Yes.
Okay. All right.
And his address is 5520 William Street in Lancaster, right around the corner from the property.
Okay. Do we have in here the usual authorization letter? I'm not sure.
I did not see it, but that doesn't matter.
We can still go with it?
Are you looking at it?
Yeah, the letter, no, the letter authorizing...
Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, it is here? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Designation of
Okay,
representative.
great. I'm sorry, sir. So,
Sure.
tell us about the project and...
Absolutely. So the project is for the construction of an approximately 8,000 square foot building at 6218 Broadway. The purpose of the project is to effectively serve as a storage building for my client's automobile collection, and then also as an office space for him as well. The one side of the building, the east side of the building, in order to configure it on the property effectively, the way that we've kind of drawn it out and want to see it, we have to infringe somewhere, and to us it made the most sense to request a variance on the setback on the east side of the building. So we're looking for about a 25-foot setback instead of a 50-foot setback. There's going to be no doors on that side of the building, no garage doors on that side of the building, no lights on that side of the building, no windows on that side of the building, and it will be approximately 150 to 175 feet away from the adjoining property, the structure on the adjoining property. So that is kind of the gist of the project and what we're hoping to accomplish.
Thank you. Are you the builder?
No, I'm his attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, I helped him purchase the property, and I've been handling the rezone and all that kind of stuff.
Okay,
for him.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
All right, questions from the board? Start with Ms. Dudley.
Yes, I do have a question. I drove out here to try to find the location, and I may have not found it correctly, but because it looks like there's a there's a house with a barn there. Is it going to be right next door to it?
Yeah, so this property is basically at the corner of Broadway and Schwartz there.
Yes.
And so the frontage is 167 feet on
Okay.
Broadway. So that's the width of the property, and then I forget what the depth is, but it's
it
like,
goes back.
yeah, it's like 1.16 acres or something like that. So it's right at the corner of Schwartz and Broadway.
Okay.
So that adjoining property with the house and the barn is immediately adjacent to us, so that would be the adjoining property line that we'd be abutting against.
I do have another question. Have you spoken to the neighbors about this, and are they in favor of this? Are they not in favor?
Yeah, so the neighbors actually came to way back when the original planning board meeting, and we had some extensive conversations with them after the fact, after the meeting, and they liked the project. They didn't have any issues with the project. They haven't been to any of the meetings since then. They even actually, we didn't really quite get this far, but they even went as far as offering potentially selling a portion of that parcel, so we didn't even have to do this, but we didn't really get to that point yet. But the neighbors came to the initial planning board meeting when they got the notice, and then we explained the project to them, and they liked the project, and since then we haven't heard anything from them.
Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Ms. Tillmans. Do you have any questions?
Just looking at the site plan, so obviously the entrance is on Schwartz Road, nothing on Broadway itself. What is this other, loop here? Is that part of that property as well, or is that a retention pond or something, or what is this right here?
Retention pond.
Okay. I have no other questions then.
Thank you, Ms. Castellano. do you have any questions?
I don't have any further questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this strictly storage, or is there some other business plans or something to it look like with the parking lot and whatnot? There might be some idea of more, I don't know, retail or event or something.
No, so this is strictly for storage. There's not going to be any business run out of this. It's not going to be automotive repair, restoration, anything like that. There's not going to be oil changes, anything like that going on. The only thing that we would consider is, and again, this would be during regular business hours, you know, my client might want to host like a car show. And that's the purpose of the parking lot. So he is an avid car collector with a substantial automobile collection, and then with that comes a lot of other friends in the same automobile community who all have collections. So it might be, hey, everybody meet up at the shop for 9 o'clock, we're gonna have coffee, and then we're gonna go for a drive. So that's mostly for kind of that sort of situation.
Fair enough. Thank you. No more other questions.
Is there going to be an office in the building?
He's gonna have a personal office in the building for himself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Monticelli. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What exactly is Autopia?
That's just the name of his business. Are you asking like what the purpose of the LLC is, or?
Autopia is the name of his business. I know you said that he owns a lot of cars and he meets up with other car owners. But what exactly is the nature of his business?
Oh, see, I'm sorry. So let me rephrase that. Autopia is not his business. It's an LLC that was formed specifically to own the building. So Autopia is just an entity that owns 6218 Broadway and the building that we're going to put up there. So it's not a business of any type of variety. He works in commercial sales outside of this.
Okay.
So yeah, so completely separate thing. So Autopia is not any sort of business or
Real
operating.
estate holding company.
Basically, yeah, pretty much.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you
Yeah,
Oh, it's a real estate holding company.
Yeah, that's
okay.
really what it is. He just took the name, you know, because it incorporated automobiles, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, combination
So-
of auto and Utopia.
When you said he plans to use it for an office, what business is the office connected to?
No business. It's like having an office in your home.
Gotcha.
He might want to pop out and, you know, go do some paperwork there at night or something like that for his own company, but he's not running a business out of that office. It's more for his personal use.
Okay. My other question is, I noted in the explanation as to why you needed this variance, that if the building were moved west, you would still need a variance, but if the building were moved west, it wouldn't be close to someone else's house. So I'm wondering why you're choosing to ask for a variance 25 feet from the property line of a residence rather than 25 feet from the street, from
Sure.
Schwartz Road.
Sure. I mean, it's a few factors. I mean, the first being that we discussed this with the neighbors and they had no problem with it, so we decided that this would be the most effective way to go because it falls in line with the original plan that we had in mind. So that would be the first reason. The second reason would be then you're losing 25 feet of the parking lot on the west side of the building, which is a pretty significant amount of space for, you know, a parking lot. I'm not exactly sure how wide the parking lot is, but you know, the entire parcel is only 167, and the building itself is going to be 50, so, you know, 50-ish, I think. So, you know, if you're coming 25 feet off of that, you've already lost half the width of the parcel.
Okay.
So that's really why.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Monticelli. And I guess we should point out that so the plan is there's no manufacturing here, it's just storage.
Correct.
No excessive noise.
No.
That would be, okay.
Yeah, no, the property's not going to be used outside of basically 9 to 5 during the week and 9 to like 3 maybe on the weekends. It's not, there's not going to be parties going on. There's not going to be like I said too, on the back side of that building, there's no lights, there's no doors, there's no cars aren't going to be driving around to that side of the building making noise or anything like that.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stewart. What do you have to say?
Matt, this is more for you. Regarding whoever you're representing, I know you can't speak for them, which is why I'm asking him. An 8,000 square foot storage facility with a personal office, when eventually whoever you're representing does pass away and this goes for sale or whatever purpose, is there a way that we can ensure that this stays what he's intending it as a storage and personal office?
Well, I can only answer by stating that we're currently under review under a rezone application and a site plan approval.
Okay.
Planning board cannot move forward unless
So there's really-
come into compliance with what proposed zoning district.
Because it's agricultural residential there.
It is currently agricultural residential. Under the current zoning, the setback requirements are what they are. They may be less restrictive, but do note in the agricultural residential district, you can build an 8,000 square foot veterinary clinic, a horse barn.
Yeah.
All of the other permitted uses within the district. The project, as I said, is currently under review for a rezone and site plan approval.
That pretty much answered my question anyway. Okay.
And this is, so I think it's worth pointing out, it's a good question. I think it's worth pointing out that the zoning that this is probably soon going to get is light commercial, which would they be allowed then? And it would allow them. I mean, so they already made petitions to the planning board and have gone far along with it.
So if it goes like commercial, they could do basic
Whatever permitted
machining.
uses are allowed.
It would be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Matt, you've been working on this project, I'm sure, for quite a while. Do you have any comments? Okay.
This wouldn't, is this requiring a seeker? I mean, is that part of it done with the planning
Is
board
that
yet?
been, as soon as the seeker been completed already, the seeker's been, they've had a negative declaration already. So this planning board did it, and has it gone to the town board yet, or that's next?
The seeker's already gone to the town board. Right?
Seeker's been adopted. It does have to get back to the planning board. And forgive me, I'm not sure whether or not we had public hearing for a reason yet.
No, we have not.
Okay, nothing else from the board?
Can I also just add something to your concerns or reservations? So I also own a manufacturing company outside of this, and I can tell you that the power that would be required to do manufacturing, that infrastructure does not exist on the property, and it's not the same level of power that we're going to even be running into the building. So in the event that somebody even wanted to consider this down the road, it would be a substantial investment to power that building, which would probably deter them anyway because there's plenty of other buildings on Broadway that already have that infrastructure. Yeah.
Okay, good
I'll
point.
also add that in the agricultural residential district, 15 feet is a setback requirement on that property.
Okay. Got it. Anyone in the audience would like to speak on this? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Tillman.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings, that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance relief is substantial, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought, that this board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicants if the variance relief sought is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intent and purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief.
Motion by Mr. Tillman. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Dudley, beat you to it.
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Hain?
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Ms. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
Chairman Michael?
Yes. The variance has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night. Anything else for the motion? Anything else for the good of the order?
Can I just say one thing? We had 5 cases this meeting, and we mailed all but Mr. Castellano's packet out. He's been kind enough to pick his packet up every month. And it cost the town $10 a packet to mail. No problem. Our next meeting, we have a dozen cases.
Oh, boy.
So the packet will be hefty, and there is a one large map that will be in there. When I'm going to have...
I'll pick mine up.
I'm going to have Andrea contact everyone through email and asking who is able to pick it up, because it'll be at least $25 a packet.
Yeah, I'd be willing to pick mine up if you just, monthly, if you just notified me when
Okay.
it was ready by
Absolutely.
email. So, yeah, I have no problem. I drive by here all the time, so.
Okay, then
You know, I wondered about that when I see those heavy packets and how much the postage is.
You just see in the town $50 a month.
I know.
Okay, anyone else? Motion to adjourn?
It'll
Second?
show up in your Christmas bonus.
I'm sorry, Matt.
Motion.
Matt.
I'm a little slow on the draw here. I've been speaking with the town board, well, I haven't presented yet to the town board, but I've been speaking with the planning board about upgrading software opportunities. We utilize the integrated permitting system through Edmunds GovTech. They have a module that's available that more than likely planning and zoning will purchase just to manage the existing site plan reviews, rezones, things of that nature. With that module, they have a zoning portal. We've been working with our town clerk's office to allow contractors, engineers, surveyors to make applications and payment online through our website. And I think the time has come that we did enter into the 21st century. We get all of our documentation electronically, submittals can go electronically, payments can be done electronically. And the management of this board can utilize the features of the software. So the closer we get to planning, it's probably not going to be effective to try to hurry up and get into it this year, but planning for budgetary purposes may be feasible for fiscal year 2024. So, as always, I'll offer myself to each one individually, just to see what the program can do. I can spend one-on-one time. I believe, tomorrow's a different meeting, but we're setting up other presentations with IPS to do some in-depth demonstrations on what the software can do. So if you can start thinking about what you may want out of that whole system, it will be beneficial because we can manage and customize the software to do basically what we want to do.
So we don't have, our GIS, for instance, doesn't have a zoning overlay, I don't think, right? Some municipalities do have a zoning overlay with,
Well, our GIS that's available to the town right now is specifically meant for the highway department and recreation department.
Okay.
It does itemize, certain infrastructure. There is possibility. We do have the potential to go in that direction.
yeah.
Again, so we're still in the infancy of discussion. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, sounds good.
We utilize our permitting software, complaint software, fire safety inspections, we do floodplain permits with it. Very versatile, but you have to use it like anything. The data in is the information that's going to give you output.
Yep. Garbage in, garbage out. Yep. Sounds good. Good.
I like that.
Adjourned?
I don't know, I'm not making a motion again.
Motion by Mr. Sorba, second by Mr. Montalvo.
Second.
Aye. The next one's a long one. The Google Earth thing, or Google Maps. I figured it out. You have an option. I think when I see it, I use Google Maps every day, all day, it's my job. Whenever I see people do it, everything. Yeah.